From the heart of the space city to the heart of Gen Z, welcome to Next Gen Conversation. Not Dad's Talk Radio. Ethan talks to you about the issues and events that matter to our generation. This is the Next Gen Report with Ethan Buchanan.
Hey, good Sunday evening, everybody. How are we? Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, it's a pleasure to be with all of you this evening. We got a lot to talk about today. Marco Rubio is killing it, or was killing it this week in Munich, Germany. AOC was also in Munich, made a fool of herself. What else do we got? The media is at it again. We're going to talk about that here in this segment. There's a whole lot going on right now, but before we get to any of that, I want to first say that the Next Gen Report is proudly and officially sponsored by Deus Volt lapel pins. I could not be happier about this partnership. They make a good product. You've seen them if you listen to the show or watch the show. You've seen them on my lapel for the last several months. So I'm very happy to be sponsored by Deus Volt lapel pins. They make products that represent everything from your Christian heritage to just your Western heritage. That's something that we're going to be talking about a little bit more later on in the show. A fantastic product, high quality, beautiful designed lapel pins. And as you can see on the screen, if you're watching, they're $6 a pop. So this is a great way to look fantastic in your day-to-day life. Maybe if you want to upgrade your Sunday best, or you just want a little bit more flash if you wear jackets to the office, or maybe you just want something to decorate your backpack with. Regardless of why you want a Deus Volt lapel pin, you should go get a Deus Volt lapel pin. They're cheap, but they're not cheaply made. They're affordable, but you're paying for, I'd pay $20 for this. I really would. So go check out Deus Volt lapel pins. They're the official sponsor of the Next Gen Report. And I cannot recommend this product enough to you. Now, without further ado, like I said, we have got a lot to talk about today. One of the things that has just really stuck out to me this week is how ridiculous the media is. And if you're listening to talk radio right now, conservative talk radio, you probably know this already. I'm not telling you anything new. You know the media is silly. And I know this too, and yet I'm still surprised every single time I get another example of just how silly the media is. I'm astonished that they could push the bar even farther. And we had a great example of that this week. But I want to preface that first with this article from Hot Air. So here's the headline. CNN lost 2/3 of its viewers in past decades. If we scroll down here, the decrease from roughly 1.3 million viewers in 2016 to 553,000 now is fueling rumors of a possible network sale, something CNN's up for grabs parent company has vehemently denied. So I believe CNN is owned by Warner Brothers Discovery. All right, Warner Brothers Discovery is up for sale. I believe Netflix is trying to buy them, so there's all of that. But what's shocking here is how few people are watching this. I mean, there's radio shows that get more active listeners than CNN. So for all of the rumors that, oh, talk radio is dead, or oh, radio is dead, TV took over, clearly that's not the case. But this also leaves the big question of why. Why is it that something that was 20 years ago, not even 10 years ago, thought to be the end of any other platform, which is talk television, news television, why is it that that is floundering and losing to one of its oldest competitors, the supposedly outdated talk radio? Well, the reason for that is people just don't trust these people. They don't want to be lied to. People tend to trust a radio talk show host more than someone who's working for a corporate media outlet like CNN. And there's a good reason for that, and that's because CNN and other outlets just consistently, maybe they don't outright lie, but I believe they do that, but they also bend the truth. And I'll give you another example of that. And maybe not so much bending the truth is what's going on here, but just trying to conceal the truth. And the case will be made perfectly when I actually show you this headline. Take a listen to this right here. Violent crime plummets across major U.S. cities. Cities with the largest drops in homicide rates in 2024 to 2025. Now, you might think, okay, well, what's wrong with that? And nothing really. I mean, it's just reporting the massive drop in crime from 2024 to 2025. And that's what you would expect, right? We had a president that came in and campaigned super hard on dropping the violent crime rate, reducing crime, making America safe again. And then he comes into office and he does exactly that. He does big crime crackdowns in hotbeds like Memphis, Washington, D.C., places where there's massive crime. New Orleans is another one. It hasn't gotten pressed, but he's been down there too. Or federal officials have, not Trump himself. So you really shouldn't be surprised at any of this. It's exactly what we voted for. It's what he campaigned on. It's what we've gotten. Great. So why does this headline matter? Because this is not the original headline. This violent crime plummets across major U.S. cities is what they changed the headline to after they got called out by White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. Now, why did she feel the need to call them out? Here was the original headline to that exact same article from Axios. And thank you, Caroline Leavitt, for grabbing a screenshot of this and posting it so that we have it forever. Crime plunges in major U.S. cities despite Trump's crackdown rhetoric. Despite. So let me get this straight. You have a president who campaigned on cracking down on violent crime, came into office, cracked down on violent crime falls, and then you say that's despite the president's rhetoric. What are we talking about? What is going on? That's like if I turned to my wife and said, hey, babe, our bank account balance has declined despite my spending of money. No, that's exactly why it declined. That's exactly why. It didn't do that despite my spending of money. I spent money, the bank account balance declines. You crack down on violent crime declines. They're trying to act like this is just some mystery. We don't know what happened. How did violent crime decline? It's impossible to tell. We may never know. Actually, what happened was we cracked down on violent crime and violent crime falls. This isn't complicated to understand, but the media thinks you're stupid. They really do. And on top of thinking you're stupid, they think you're not going to notice that they think you're stupid. Here's Caitlin Collins saying, actually, the media covers the Trump administration super fairly, so I don't understand what's going on here. Take a listen to this.
You know, they always argue the media is biased against them and doesn't cover them fairly, even though we cover them, I think, fairly and accurately.
We cover them, I think, fairly and accurately. Is that example that I just showed you from Axios something you would consider to be fair and accurate? Because I don't think that's fair and accurate. I don't think that denying President Trump the credit that he should rightfully get for reducing violent crime in the United States is fair or accurate. It's not fair because he deserves credit for doing something good, even if you dislike him. And it's not accurate because you're pretending it's a mystery and we don't know how it happened. We know how it happened. President Trump cracked down on violent crime. Whether you like him or not, that's what happened. All right, we got a great show coming up. We will be right back with more in just a second. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back to the Next Gen Report. I want to stay on this topic of, just the media being ridiculous for a minute because we had another tragic, truly tragic example of this. There was a recent school shooting this week in Canada, of all places. Now, I was led to believe that such things were impossible in Canada because they had very strict gun control. And that's the solution, right? That's what we hear all the time. It's just the guns. So if we just heavily restrict guns, the school shootings will magically disappear. Obviously, that's not the case. If you have an ounce of common sense, you know that that's not the case. And so we had one of these tragic shootings in Canada. I believe 10 people were killed. And I think that includes the shooter as well. Now, if you just look at the mainstream media, the left-wing media coverage of this shooting, you would be forgiven for thinking that this is a woman who went nuts and shot a bunch of people. Because that's what they're saying about it. That's what they're saying about this shooting. Here's Reuters. I mean, this is mainstream of the mainstream. This is global press, Reuters is. They're supposed to be, super reliable and legendary outlet. Canadian police identify 18-year-old woman as a suspect in mass school shooting. Was an 18-year-old woman with mental health issues, well, that's true, killed her mother and stepbrother before attacking her former school on Wednesday investigators did not offer a motive. The killer, whom police identified as Jess Van Rootselaar, died by suicide. I mean, you would think this is a woman, because that's what they're telling you. Her mother, her school. You would be forgiven for thinking this is a woman. It's not a woman. This is a man that did this shooting. And you would have to go to what's considered a right-wing fringe radical outlet like the New York Post to figure out that this is, in fact, a man who did this shooting. Trans shooter, Jess Van Rootselaar, who killed mom's stepbrother, shot up school looking to finish off family. And the New York Post recognizes that this is a man. The deranged transgender teen who gunned down 5 students and a teacher at a small Canadian school was looking to finish off his remaining siblings after first killing his mother and stepbrother at home. Now, if you go back to this Reuters article, at no point do they even tell you that this was transgender. They don't even say this was a man. No, this was a woman. It's a woman among women who did this, which is obviously not the case. And this is why nobody trusts the media. Because things like this are important to know. They just are. When we're seeing again and again instances of transgender violence, it's kind of important to know when another instance crops up. And yet the mainstream media is actively trying to hide it from you. They don't want you to know that this was a transgender person or a man. Even the Canadian police is going out and saying, oh, yes, this is a woman. But of course, it's the Canadian police, so of course they would respect the pronouns or what have you. But it just goes to show you that you cannot trust the mainstream media. And despite what a lot of people on the right might think, transgender ideology has not yet been defeated. I know a lot of people kind of feel that way on the right, that we've won that battle. No, we haven't. We have to keep fighting that battle constantly because this ideology is not going away. It just isn't. As silly and ridiculous on its face as it is, it persists, even in red states. A lot of people here in Texas think I don't have to worry about this. I don't have to worry about this in my schools, in my institutions, wherever. Yes, you do. It's in red states, even super red states like Texas and Florida. Check this out from Breitbart. We had another example of someone getting canceled for not denying reality. Miss North Florida, Kaylee Bush, says she was stripped of Miss America title after refusing to accept transgenderism. Kaylee Bush, the 2024 winner of the Miss North Florida beauty contest, has revealed that she was stripped of her Miss America title because she refused to sign a contract that would have forced her to accept transgenderism. She was stripped of her title in November of 2024 despite winning her contest and signing a contract to confirm her position. The beauty queen, claims she was asked to sign a replacement contract several months after she won. She says the contract contained new language affirming transgenderism and she refused to sign it. As she should have. Good. Do not sign that contract. Do not deny reality. And then when they ask you to deny reality, call them out for it and shame them publicly. Because denying reality is shameful. Trying to accept abject craziness as just reality that is fine is ridiculous and it should be shamed. Thankfully, she's doing exactly that. She actually talked to TMZ, of all people, about this, which kind of surprised me that she talked to TMZ. That's not someone that I would think would be even slightly interested in talking about an issue like this. But here she is telling TMZ what had happened.
You were looking to compete for Miss America, but then they took your Florida crown off you because you made statements about sort of transgender?
Yes, that is exactly right. I was asked to sign a contract that was different than the first one that I had agreed to because they had changed it 4 weeks after I rightly won. And so I didn't lose my crown because I broke a rule. I lost the crown because I was unwilling to rewrite the truth.
And were you super upset, obviously, when you lost your crown and then Miss Cheerleaders America reached out to you and said, hey, we will honour you?
Yes, it was heartbreaking, it was confusing, it was disappointing because Miss America has been honouring women for over 100 years and now they can't even define what a woman is.
And she's completely right. It's rightly disappointing that an American institution like that, because this is an institution to a certain extent, can't even define what a woman is. It's silly. It's ridiculous. But shout out to her for calling it out. All right. In the rest of this segment, I want to talk real quick about immigration because I think we had two prime examples of how a lot of what the left says about immigration is just nonsense. It's lies, and they know it is. So one is this idea that, we just need to bring these people in so they can build a better life. We're just trying to be nice to them and help them. This is us, our bleeding heart liberals are just wanting to take these people in and make a better life for them. That's not what's happening. They want to use you for cheap labor. They do. And we've had examples of this in the past. The Kelly Osbourne clip that went viral a couple of years ago when she said, oh, if you deport all the illegal aliens, who's going to clean your toilet? That's how they actually view these people. They're not trying to help people. They want cheap labor. They want a house servant. And no upstanding white American is sitting there going, oh, yeah, I want to, be a housekeeper for whatever left-wing elite wants to hire me. No upstanding American of any color wants to do that. It's just not a fun job. I mean, people do it, but they're not interested in doing it. And definitely not for slave wages, which is what's being offered for these positions oftentimes. It's under-the-table work, cash jobs. Now, immigrants who have no other choice because they're illegal aliens will definitely do that because they can claim welfare at the same time. And that's what we've seen time and time again. And here is Democrat rep and LGBT activist Becca Balint saying this out loud. Take a listen.
Labor, and of course, we have to come to a place in Congress where it is no longer a political issue, but we see it as an existential issue for the country. If we don't have avenues for people to come here legally to work or to build a home here, I'm going to be really crude right now. We're not going to have anybody around to wipe our asses because we don't have enough people.
We're not going to have anyone around to wipe our... I'm not going to say it. I think I can say it on the radio, but I'm not going to say it anyway. This is what they think of these people. They are the cheap labor to do the jobs that we don't want to do. And they're openly saying it. They're saying it out loud. They're not even trying to hide it. Now, the other lie that we hear all the time is like, oh, this is just an ethnic cleansing. This is just brown people. That's not true either. That's almost just as ridiculous. I don't know a single American that's fine with illegal aliens as long as they're white. And we have a case that I'm going to talk about in the next segment because I'm out of time here, where an Irish guy, white as can be, is now being detained because he also is an illegal alien. All right? So it's not just brown people. It's everybody. All right? So we're going to talk about that in the next segment coming right up. Stay tuned. We got a quick ad break, and then we'll be back with more of the Next Gen Report. All right, think back with me, if you will. How many times have you heard the line from leftists, Democrat officials, whatever, that the immigration enforcement is just an ethnic cleansing? I've heard it tons of times. I see it on Twitter all the time. It's like their favorite line. This is an ethnic cleansing. Except what we actually see when we look at what's going on is this is not restricted to a particular ethnicity. It's just everyone that is illegal is being deported. And I remind you, time and time again, this is not a race issue. I don't know how it became a race issue. Anyone of any color from any place can become an illegal alien in the United States. All right? All you have to do is be here without being allowed to be here. And you're an illegal alien. So we've got this case out of Boston where this Irish guy is being held in detention and deported because he's an Irish national. He's not supposed to be in the United States. He's been here for almost 20 years. And he's now finally been arrested and detained by the Trump administration, who's supposed to be super racist, right? I don't know how much you know about Irish people, but they're white. Cracker is an appropriate term for the average Irish person, all right? And so the idea that this is just a race thing is ridiculous on its face. It's not. It's clearly not, but they're still trying to portray it like that. So here's the story. This is from the New York Post again. I like the New York Post. Irishman stuck in ICE custody 20,000 miles from his Boston home, oh boo-hoo, for overstaying visa 16 years ago. It's just torture. An Irishman who overstayed his 90-day tourist visa more than 15 years ago has been held in a Texas immigration detention facility for nearly 5 months rather than being deported, calling it a form of torture. Oh, how could they just held him for 15 months? This poor guy is just locked in a detention center. Seamus Colleton, I don't know how to pronounce that. Colleton, I'm going to guess, is married to an American woman. He told Irish media that he has a valid U.S. work permit and a pending green card application. And he was suddenly picked up by agents in Boston where he runs a construction company. All right, so let me dispel a couple of rumors here. And I'm not an immigration lawyer, but I know this to be the case. Marrying an American does not automatically mean you get to live here. All right? Let's just clear that up real quick because that seems to be a point of confusion. But he's married to an American. I don't care. Deported. You don't get to just sign a marriage license and then all of your previous immigration crimes are just flushed away. You still have to come here legally. There's still a process. Marrying an American citizen will grease the wheels, but a marriage license is not a green card. And a green card application is not a green card either. All right? So you don't get to go through the process properly after the fact. You don't get to overstay a tourist visa by 15 years and then expect everybody to look the other way when you finally get caught. And that's what's happening here. This guy is being deported, as he should be, because he's not supposed to be here. Even though he's not Hispanic, he's not supposed to be here. This is not a race thing. Stop trying to make it a race thing. It's silly. All right? Now, moving on from that, I want to talk about the Munich Security Conference. We had a couple of interesting clips from that. One was AOC from New York was at the Munich Security Conference. I have no idea what she's doing there. The Munich Security Conference, it's basically just a big conference where everybody gets together from around the world and talk about security policy. All right? AOC has no business being there. All right? She just doesn't. She has nothing to say at the Munich Security Conference. And she made that point clearly. Here she is at the Munich Security Conference making a fool of herself. She's asked, okay, well, what about U.S. troops defending Taiwan? Now, if you're going to be there, that's a question you should know. That's a big issue right now. And she just completely flubs the answer. Take a listen to this.
Would and should the U.S. actually commit U.S. troops to defend Taiwan if China were to move?
I think that this is such a, I think that this is a, this is, of course, a very long-standing policy of the United States. And I think what we are hoping for is that we want to make sure that we never get to that point.
All right,
and we want to make
somewhere.
sure that we are moving in all of our economic research and our global positions to avoid any such confrontation and for that question to even arise.
All right, but that question has arisen, and it continues to arise almost constantly. This becomes an issue fairly regularly. What are we going to do if this happens? Now, her answer should have been, I'm not sure if that happens, what the policy of whatever administration at the time will be, because I'm just a representative in the U.S. House. That's the correct answer. The response to that should be, the President of the United States is the commander-in-chief of our military. That will be his decision when the time comes. Unless Congress declares war, and then we have to do it. All right? And that's not a very complicated answer. And it doesn't take that long to spit it out. But she couldn't spit it out. Again, because she has no business being here. Now, I want to contrast her making a fool of herself with Marco Rubio, who showed up and was just a fantastic example of what Western society should be. And this is a great time to remind you that we are sponsored by by Deus Volt lapel pins. This is a company that believes in Western society. It believes in Christendom. This is a guy who makes these pins because the symbols he puts on them have meaning. They represent history, heritage, Christianity. These are things that are important to everyone, all right? Or they should be, at least. And so if you want to support that heritage, that faith, then go get a Deus Volt lapel pin. I want to send one to Marco Rubio, because if you take a listen to what he says here, I mean, this is just I love it so much. He's basically saying here in this clip that I'm about to play for you that we cannot, as Western society, be weak. We do not come from weak people. This is not a society that was built by weak men. We must be strong. We must be tightly knit together and strong because we share these things. We share Christendom. We share Western culture, Western values. We built the greatest society together, though there were some bumps along the way. Take a listen to him saying this.
And this is why we do not want our allies to be weak, because that makes us weaker. We want allies who can defend themselves so that no adversary will ever be tempted to test our collective strength. This is why we do not want our allies to be shackled by guilt and shame. We want allies who are proud of their culture and of their heritage, who understand that we are heirs to the same great and noble civilization, and who together with us are willing and able to defend it. And this is why we do not want allies to rationalize the broken status quo rather than reckon with what is necessary to fix it. For we in America have no interest in being polite and orderly caretakers of the West's managed decline. We do not seek to separate, but to revitalize an old friendship and renew the greatest civilization in human history. What we want is a reinvigorated alliance that recognizes that what has ailed our societies is not just a set of bad policies, but a malaise of hopelessness and complacency. An alliance is the alliance that we want is one that is not paralyzed into inaction by fear. Fear of climate change, fear of war, fear of technology. Instead, we want an alliance that boldly races into the future. And the only fear we have is the fear of the shame of not leaving our nations prouder, stronger, and wealthier for our children. An alliance ready to defend our people, to safeguard our interests, and to preserve the freedom of action that allows us to shape our own destiny. Not one that exists to operate a global welfare state and atone for the purported sins of past generations.
I mean, that might be the greatest segment of a speech I've ever seen from anyone ever. Ever. Because he just completely demolishes all of the lies that the left constantly tells us about our society. How many times have we been told that, oh, Western society is just evil and oppressive and all we do is colonize and take away from people and la-di-da-di-da? We're the great villains of history if you ask the average leftist. But the simple truth about Western society is we are great. We are a mighty society. Look all over the world at the things Western society has built. We'll talk about this more in the next segment. But we are not a people that sit on our hands, and we have never been from the very beginning of the West, which was Rome. From the very beginnings of the West in the Roman Empire, these were not people that sat on their hands and just waited. These were people that achieved and invented. And as Rome became a Christian nation, it became a nation that spread great inventions and Christianity to the rest of the world. I've talked about this before. Rome is the grandfather. And through Rome's dedicated efforts, it built thousands of years of heritage. And again, look at any great ancient Western country. England is a prime example. Look at the things England achieved. And France, which is also a son of Rome. The things that they did, the inventions that they brought to third world countries, countries that are still third world because they rejected the West. We are a strong society, we should be, and we should not be making bones about that. We're going to talk about that more in just a second. Stay tuned. All right. I want to talk a little bit more about Marco Rubio at Munich. Now, again, I encourage you to go find this whole speech. It's available in a couple of places on Twitter. I believe the Secretary of State's official account posted it. I know they posted a bunch of clips, but you can find the whole speech, and it's real good. Go listen to all of it. But I want to share with you, just because we were talking about immigration a minute ago, I want to share with you a clip that I think perfectly demonstrates the kind of people that we want coming to the United States, and an issue that we've talked about in the past, which is balancing, past heritages and cultures with now I'm an American. Take a listen to what Marco Rubio says here about his particular heritage. Now, I'll remind you, Marco Rubio is, I think, ethnically Cuban. He is a Hispanic American. He's very open about that, and he's very proud of it. But listen just real carefully with that in mind to what he says here during this clip of his speech in Munich.
The year that my country was founded, Lorenzo and Catalina Giraldi lived in Casal Monferrato in the Kingdom of Piedmont, Sardinia.
In the year that my country was founded, and then he names some of his ancestors from way back in other parts of the world. But notice what he said. In the year that my country was founded, he's talking about the United States.
And Jose and Manuela Reina lived in Sevilla, Spain. I don't know what, if anything, they knew about the 13 colonies which had gained their independence from the British Empire. But here's what I'm certain of. They could have never imagined that 250 years later, one of their direct descendants would be back here today on this continent as the chief diplomat of that infant nation. And yet here I am, reminded by my own story that both our histories and our fates will always be linked. Together, we rebuilt a shattered continent in the wake of 2 devastating world wars. When we found ourselves divided once again by the Iron Curtain, the Free West linked arms with the courageous dissidents struggling against tyranny in the East to defeat Soviet communism. We have fought against each other, then reconciled, then fought, then reconciled again. And we have bled and died side by side on battlefields from Kapyong to Kandahar.
Now, again, when my country was founded, talking about the United States, and then he goes on to talk about what his heritage was doing. We don't have to sit here and say, oh, we forget our heritage. Oh, we forget where we come from in service of being a United States patriot. You can have both. But notice what he puts in the forefront. Now I'm an American. I come from this great Western tradition, right? Western Europe. That's where I'm from. And my family has throughout the centuries gone to these different places and done these different things, and I'm proud of that. And Marco Rubio is a very proud former Cuban, or ethnically Cuban. But he also very much understands that he is not a Cuban anymore. He is an American. He still has that heritage. He still pays homage to it. And that's what I think the beauty of the West is. We can acknowledge that, like, yeah, I'm an American. That's who I am. But I also understand that this is where America comes from. There's this great Western heritage and history. Now, if we try to rip that out of the United States, it ceases to become the United States. It becomes something completely different, and that's true for every Western country. If you look at Britain and say, you are no longer a Western nation, we're just going to pump you full of third world immigrants, and you're just going to become Afghanistan too. That doesn't work. It's not Britain anymore. It's something different. Something objectively worse. Because whether you like it or not, Western society is better. It is. And Western society is irreplaceable when it is the root of a great nation. Now, I'll give you some examples of why Western society is so great, because I say this all the time, and I feel like I should kind of give you a little bit of a demonstration. So I went and did some digging, and I found a great article about some of the everyday things that are objectively amazing, that are products of the West. These things would not exist if it wasn't for Western societies creating them. All right? Check this out. This is from listverse.com. I'm not sure exactly what this website is. I'm not overly familiar with it. I just found this digging through Google. But they list here 10 things that are, creations of the West. 1, plumbing. That's obviously true, right? We know this. Going back to, ancient Rome and even before then, We've had Western societies working on the earliest versions of plumbing, things like the aqueducts in Rome. But even beyond that, even earlier than that, he says here in this article, the first intricate system of underground pipes was developed around the 18th century BC, so that's before Christ, by Minoan civilization in modern-day Crete. And then, of course, that was built upon by later societies. Coins as common currency. That's a factor of Western civilization, and now it's everywhere, again, because of the spread of Western civilization. Now, that's phasing out thanks to digital currency, but that was a key part of society that allowed advancements. It allowed commerce. Proliferation of democracy. I think we all agree that democracy in its various forms is usually a pretty decent thing. I advocate more for the kind of constitutional republic with democratic elements that we have here in the United States than just outright democracy, but still, that's a system that was created by Western nations and then developed over the last thousands of years and spread. Ancient classic literature. Scholastic systems and scientific method. How important is that? You know, just things like universities. I remind you, the University of Universities, Oxford University, it was founded, we don't know exactly, but people estimate about 1096 is when Oxford University was founded. So well over 900 years old, possibly older. That's before even the Aztec Empire was created. Before even the most advanced third world civilization, the Aztec Empire. People in the West were already creating the modern university. And that, again, has enabled massive jumps in wealth throughout all of history. Jumps in wealth, jumps in knowledge. It's an amazing thing. The printing press and mass literacy, that is a modern-day Western invention. If you can read right now, thank the Western world. Circumnavigation, we can travel the planet like that now because of Western society. It was the West that circumnavigated the planet. It was the West that invented even things like air travel. Aeronautics, we've been to the moon, allegedly, because of Western society. The factory production line, that's caused massive jumps in both wealth, because people can get good jobs in factories, and in technology. And then Christianity is right here at number 1. It's an old term that covers most of the Western world and some parts beyond it. It is on this list at position 1 for very good reason. Despite the fact that there have been some dark times that Christianity may have contributed to, on the whole, the Western world as we know it exists today thanks to the efforts of medieval monks and scholars and Christian people of goodwill. This is objectively true. Now, I would flip this. I wouldn't say that Christianity is a product of the Western world. I would say the Western world is a product of Christianity. It is Christianity that allowed for things like universities. Oxford was created by Christians. Some of the greatest scientists in the history of humanity have been Christians who sought to learn more about the world God created. All of these things matter. We don't appreciate it enough because we live in it and we grew up in it. But the Western world is a unique thing. It's a beautiful thing. It's an important thing. It should be fought for. It should be preserved. And we should be honest about what it is. It's not just a coincidence. None of these beautiful things, these amazing things in this world that we live in, just happened. They were created with intention, primarily by Christians, to make the lives of everyone better. That is the legacy of the West. We should continue to further that legacy and preserve it. Thank you very much for listening to the Next Gen Report. I am Ethan Buchanan.